Hi, everybody. I'm Caroline Phipps, the founder of Living With Inner Elegance, and welcome to my podcast. Heroes and Horses is an inspiring organization that helps our veterans to live better lives by connecting them with horses.
I began to lose an identity. I began to lose a sense of who I was. A lot of guys that were once great warriors become marginalized, and the suicide rates are just staggering. I know quite a few guys that have taken their own lives. I think that it's not combat that's the issue. I think it's the processes when they come home. Everything we do is designed to take the struggle away, when it's really struggle that gives things in life value.
We're trying to take these Mustangs to where they can have a job, they can have a purpose in life, they can enjoy what they're doing, and that's exactly what this program's about. We're using horses that are needing and wanting the same thing to help the human being who is needing and wanting some purpose in life.
These horses are wild animals, and when they find their purpose, they'll use that to transform the lives of these veterans that they're going to meet up with.
These are the perfect animals for this situation. And when you put some of the toughest human beings in the world with arguably some of the toughest horses in the world together, and they're both curing each other of what they both need, I don't think there's anything better than that.
Challenge, it wouldn't have any value, and that's really what this story is all about.
I'm delighted to have Jane Strong here with me in the studio today. She is the co-founder of the Equus Effect, and Jane also helps people live better lives, connecting with the horses on her farm here in Connecticut, as well as helping the veterans in her veterans program. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you, Caroline. It's good to be here.
So happy to have you here. And we also have Jason Laramore coming in from the ranch in Montana. He is the program director of Heroes and Horses. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, thanks for having me. Great to be here today.
So glad that you're joining us. I grew up on a farm in England, and one of my first memories is of rounding up our cattle on my pony. And from there on in, horses were always a part of my life. I rode recreationally and competitively, and then later on worked in programs helping organizations and corporations to put together work environments that were kinder and more collaborative. I think it's very safe to say that our world looks like it does today because of our human relationship with these magnificent creatures. They helped to keep us safe. They came into battle with us. They helped to feed us. They would pull the plow. And I think that there is such a deep connection that our world looks like it does because these magnificent creatures chose to join up with us. So, in our podcast today, we are going to take a really interesting dive into how these magnificent creatures are helping our veterans today. So, Jason, tell us, how did you end up on the ranch with Heroes and Horses, and were you a horse guy?
So that's a great question. So I actually came through the program in 2018, and then graduated and would return in different capacities over the years. And then ultimately in 2024, I returned as the program director for Heroes and Horses. And to answer the other question, no, I was not a horse guy at all. Matter of fact, before I came to the program, I had one experience in my life with a horse when I was about 16, where I was at my buddy's ranch in Missouri when I was in high school, and he was like, "Hey, come over and ride with my horses after school." And I said, "Cool, yeah." And went over there, and he introduced me to his thoroughbred horse named Hell Fury, I think his name was, and put me on the back of it, and he was just like, "Okay, these are the reins. This is what you do." And I'm like, "Okay, how do I get him to go?" And he goes, "Oh, I'll do that for you." And then he, boom, smacked him on the backside, and horse took off. Of course, I dropped the reins, and I was just holding the horn for dear life. And then the horse, we kind of came up to a barbed wire fence, and the horse bucked me over kind of into the barbed wire fence. And so that was my first experience with the horse. So when I came to the program, I was actually deathly afraid of horses at the time. So it was pretty interesting navigating that. Yeah.
I think so many people have that experience, don't they?
Yeah. Well, when we work with people and we ask them in the barn, have you had any horse experience? And when someone says, yes, I had an experience, we know what they're going to tell us, which is a story just like yours, which is like something off a cliff or some kind of running into some tree branch or into the barn. It's always an experience is going to reveal,
Yeah.
which is funny.
So, Jason, how did Heroes and Horses appeal to you then after your barbed wire experience?
Um, it appealed to me in so many ways. First off, I mean, initially, so the way I found out about the program is I had a sergeant that he was my NCO downrange during one of my tours in Iraq. And he went through the program, and then he was also in the 500-mile documentary that everybody could see on YouTube. And I'd been kind of going through a lot of things at that time, and he was like, "Hey, this program would be really great for you." And initially, the first thing that came up was my fear response when even thinking about horses, or and he's telling me about the program, and I'm instantly thinking, how am I going to do this? I'm scared to death of horses. It sounds like ranger school on a horse, and all this stuff. And ultimately that's what, I am thankful the type of person I am that even to this day, I carry fears for different things. The only difference is I face those fears and I move towards them. Just doing kind of the opposite of what our brain is wired to do. We're naturally wired to move away from fear. And so I took that as an opportunity for growth and kind of wanted to confront that fear head on, and then getting to the program was a huge eye opener. I'm from the deep, deep south of Southern California. I grew up in Chula Vista. So, besides going to the beach and maybe going camping in the mountains and things like that. I didn't have any kind of deep experiences with the backcountry or any sort of uh, human animal connection outside of, the household pet. So that was very interesting, experiencing myself in that way. And then just I guess, kind of the ego check that comes along with it, in the sense that, when I got out of the army and then came to the program, I had this idea of myself and who I was. And I would say I had a chip on my shoulder, and, to a certain aspect, thought I was just like really cool. and, all of that gets stripped away when you're on the back of a Mustang, 11,000 feet up on a mountain, and so yeah, I was just thankful for the journey. It really just put me in a position to just peel back so many layers to actually find out who I was behind all of the kind of facades or masks or things that we put up on a daily basis to ultimately protect ourselves. So
Jane, could you speak a little bit as to how horses connect with us in a sense that they know when we're bluffing?
Oh, yeah. Well, it goes back to the fact that they're prey animals. So they get killed by predators. And when one is a prey animal, um, like all prey animals, any animal that is not a predator or a carnivore is going to have a pretty good eye out for what the intentions are of anyone or anything in the environment. So they're always watching for what's really going on. And just like a lion out for breakfast, horses know that. They know that the insides don't match the outsides because the inside is jacked up and the outside is moving very slowly. And so I think this is kind of what Jason's talking about, is that they will help you peel away the layers because they're not really interested in those masks. They're interested in what's going on inside. And I think because they're kind to us, they're not judgmental and they're not cruel, they're willing to reveal that to us without any kind of a menacing attitude toward us. It's more they don't take advantage of our fear in a way, that they really do want us to be honest, because then we're actually more useful to the herd, because then we're present. If we're honest and emotionally honest and congruent, then we're more useful to them. And I think they kind of want us to be part of their herd. Safety in numbers. Just like a unit in the military, it's a very safer place for them.
So, Jason, how long did it take when you arrived onto the farm to sort of begin to see that the horses were giving you some feedback?
I would say it was immediately. Um, you know, it, you're introduced to your horse, and back then we the program's changed over the years, and so back then, day one you get a horse, and then you get a mule, and then you're kind of introduced just all the beginner steps of, this is how you groom and do all the things, pick up the feet, things like that. And so, I mean, just initially in the first interactions with the horse, I started to figure out some things about myself and about the horse, and for me, it was immediately apparent, as far as the horse being able to pick up on the inner world of what's going on inside of you while you're trying to remain calm outside and things like that.
So, with heroes and horses, does the horse get picked for you or you pick the horse?
So yeah, we have a pairing process, and we select the horses based on certain criteria. Um, and yeah, it usually works out pretty good. We kind of have our own little magic formula for that. And it's the guys don't get what they want, they get what they need, and I think that's super important in today's world. And so that starts at the ranch, and yeah, it works out good that way.
And does the magic formula have anything to do with horses are very being herd animals? They have a pecking order, don't they?
Yeah, sure they do. They do. And I would say with our work also, sometimes people will have an affinity for a horse for whatever reason. And actually, sometimes horses have affinities for the folks who show up. But particularly interesting to us is when we don't agree with that. Like Jason was saying, like, we don't agree. That's not really what you need. You kind of need this. And sometimes we're right, and we also have people, unlike Jason, unlike Heroes and Horses, we have people change sometimes during the program. They don't just get to pair with one horse, because we want people to understand that to have relationships in civilian life, you're going to have to deal with different kinds of people and make yourself fluid and flexible enough to do that. So we don't always change, we don't always let folks stay with the same horses. But I think the matching process must be a very interesting one for those at Heroes and Horses, because your life actually, it's a very interdependent relationship where your life is at stake if you don't have that relationship, right? Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it in our verbiage and things, but this our program is not a vacation, and it is our ranch is built on love and compassion and perseverance and just so many things, and we've done a great job to create this sacred container for these men to come here and find healing and purpose, or whatever they're looking for. Um, but yeah, I could speak from my own experience. I mean, it was exactly what I needed at that time in my life, and I didn't realize how much fear I actually carried inside of myself until I came to the program, and because I had never experienced that side of life, and it's just different. And when you're in combat, you have, your body armor, your pistol, your rifle, grenade launcher, up armored vehicles, gun teams, all this stuff. I mean, it sounds crazy, but once you get used to it, it's kind of like a Tuesday, and it's not too big of a deal. And so I guess part of me thought that, because I had been in these other circumstances in life, that would just directly translate to whatever I was going to do as being an aspiring cowboy or horseman. And so it was just, yeah, I love going back and just reminiscing on those times. It's just very interesting, observing myself going through all of that and just the layers being broken down. And, it's one of those things that initially it's tough. I mean, a lot of times the answers that we're looking for, it's at first for me, it was a tough pill to swallow, when I started finding some of these answers. Like, some of them you don't like, some of them, they make you feel uncomfortable, or, this and that, but ultimately it's exactly what you need.
So day one, when you show up for the program, what does that look like?
So day one, we call it awkward day. You have guys flying in to the airport from all over the country that, are strangers and have the common theme of serving in whatever capacity and things like that. And so, yeah, it's a bit awkward at the at the airport picking the guys up, and they're like, "Oh man, what did I sign up for?" And then so day one is just we pick the guys up, get them to the ranch. We do a kind of an in brief and then just issue gear, stuff like that. And then we have a nice meal, and then from there, kind of a fireside chat, and then uh, take the guys up to their cabin and kind of show them the lay of the land up there where they'll be staying and everything, and then let them bed down, and then we start that morning, most of the guys come down a little groggy, the first night, just thinking about all the unknowns and unforeseens and everything, you know, kind of plays a part in that. And then we get into it, and yeah.
It's so interesting, isn't it? The kinds of attitudes that we all show up with. You must find that at the Equus Effect, people arrive on your farm and why?
Yeah, I think it's partly fear. And I think it's also partly what we separate fear from vulnerability, which is fear would be an external threat or a perceived external threat. And so this is a little bit of that, with people not knowing what they're doing with horses, and they are big. Um, and they are unknown. But we think a lot of it is vulnerability because people are, as adults who come to us, veterans particularly, you have very well trained people who are used to handling difficult situations, lethal situations, and they have their training to lean on for sure. And with horses, they don't have that. And so there's partly, as I said, fear, but I think a lot of it is I don't know what I'm doing. And being a beginner, as any adult, being a beginner is hard. It's really hard because you have to admit you don't know how to go about something. And that's a tough thing for all of us because we're supposed to know. I expect that the people who come to Heroes and Horses, because they apply and they say they want to go, they probably come in with higher even expectations of themselves, just like Jason was saying. Whereas the people who come to us are coming sometimes through the VA, sometimes vet centers, and we work with a nonprofit organization that also works with veterans and first responders. So they're more choosing to come as a little bit more of an experiment rather than a 41-day commitment to whatever
Yeah.
is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So Jason, how do people show up? Are there people who show up and say, I don't know anything about dealing with this creature that doesn't have an on-off switch? Or are they inclined to be, oh, I'm going to have a go at this because that's what I do? What sort of attitudes do people show up with?
So I would say, we get guys from all different, first off, all different backgrounds, whether it's, from the military standpoint, I mean, from, your regular Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, stuff like that, all the way up to, some of the most clandestine things you could think of. And so with that, guys come in with varied kind of expectations or views of the situation. But overall, I mean, I would say a vast majority of people that come to our program don't have much horse experience at all. And I mean, honestly, it's just like thinking about, training a soldier. You get a soldier that kind of came from a unit that, they already have all the foundational training, and maybe it's not the best foundational training. So it's honestly, it's easier to train someone than to untrain someone in a new way, So,
That's
um,
interesting.
but yeah, I mean, I would say majority of the guys come don't have much horse experience, and it works out great. I mean, um, we have our staff is world class, some of the most dynamic individuals I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and um, Micah himself. I mean, he started the program, and now we have staff and people and a ranch and all the things. And, before it was just him and another guy, doing everything on a borrowed ranch. And, he was breaking all the horses and all this stuff. So we have a lot of combined, just amazing, experienced humans that come to help these guys along in their journey. And it's typically well received. And the thing is these guys get here and, the first couple days, it's kind of like crawl, walk, run, but the program it's a little fast paced in the sense of like, day one, this is your horse, and now we're moving into things, and then pretty soon you're going to be trotting and loping and doing all the different things. And so most times, I mean, by the first week, from you take a guy from, in many cases, never touching a horse, and then 7 days later, just in that short amount of time, I mean, it seems like they gain a lifetime of experience, and that's one of the most beautiful things, is seeing these guys like myself that didn't know squat about a horse, and then all of a sudden 7 days later they're trotting, loping, going out in the mountains, pushing cows and different things, and doing things that a few days prior they did not think was humanly possible. Um, I'd say that's one of the most special things to witness for me during the program.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because that's amazingly empowering, isn't it? To learn a new skill, particularly with an animal like that you don't have a brake and you don't have a steering wheel. To learn those skills that rapidly has got to be incredibly empowering for people.
Yeah, I think we find that to be true too. And what's also interesting is that a lot of people come with experience with dogs or, animals who live with us and who are companion animals. And I think part of what they say that surprises them so much is like, I don't really know this horse. And yet, if I use the right language, so the right body language, the right attitude, gestures, the horses will willingly collaborate with us if we ask them the right way. And so I think that amazes people how quickly that happens. But I think that goes back to them being prey animals. They kind of want to cooperate if they can, and they want to be a part of the herd with us or have us be part of their herd, because for them it's safer and smarter to do that. But I think that's always amazing to people how quickly they can get handy with the horses. So, yes.
So, Jason, that's got to be incredibly empowering for people to go from 0 to 60 in a week. And then having watched the wonderful film 500 Miles, which is so heartwarming and so moving about the connection of the guys with these incredible horses. When does the trip get planned in terms of, could you explain a little bit about what the trip is and where you start and where you end, and how that manifests in terms of how the people work that out, and then the connection that the veterans particularly have caring for their particular horse on this sort of hero's journey, if you like.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, so I'll kind of back it up a little bit to explain all that. So, uh, to first explain that, I'll explain what I'm about to say right now. So the program, when the guys get here, obviously it's 41 days. Okay. So it's cornerstone of our program is digital detox. So the guys aren't going to have their cell phones for 41 days. We do give them the opportunity to call home to loved ones and stuff like that, but we collect up their phones when they get here, and they get them back upon graduation. And that's to, kind of put up some guardrails to keep everything else out so they could focus on themselves and kind of harness the power of now. And then on top of that, we have a anti-inflammatory protocol that we run on the ranch. We have a dedicated chef that prepares all the meals. And that's to basically help reset their gut biome and get their body kind of working again. A lot of these guys show up in varied states of health and fitness, and, with maybe not the best habits and whatnot. So on top of having these beautiful meals prepared by our dedicated chef is Mackenzie Fink, Micah's wife, the co-founder and our wellness director. She has come up with a cookbook that she wrote called Anti-Inflammatory Pharmacy with the F, which is available on our website. And it just has all of the kind of knowledge and science behind, eating with intention and kind of getting back to, the before everything was so messed up with our the way our food sources come to us now and things like that. And so if anybody is interested in that, it is on our website. And I can tell you from my own personal experience that, this cookbook, I see it in action every day on a ranch, changing these men's lives, changing their bodies. And, oftentimes our gut is referred to as our second brain, and the gut and the brain work in tandem. And I see that full force during the program. And so it's a very beautifully curated cookbook that puts all of the intuitive nature of eating and all of the knowledge that we, give to the guys here at the ranch in a nice book for anybody who's interested in seeking out the path of anti-inflammatory eating. So
that would make a great gift for people.
I bought one. I did.
Yeah, it's great. And then, through their time on the ranch, they kind of get rewired to move in rhythm with nature instead of with all these external circumstances and things going on in the world, and all the frequencies and everything kind of get projected at you on a daily basis. And then you implement, the horse human connection, and we have a daily physical fitness regimen that's, various types of physical fitness. We do a lot of different modalities like yoga, meditation, breath work, sauna, cold plunge. And this routine takes place all before breakfast. And then from there we eat, and then we go into our training and stuff. And then the program, it progresses. And then so there's certain point in time during our schedule where we'll take the guys to different ranches in different states for out of state in some cases for different types of training and stuff like that. And then ultimately it culminates into the 11-day pack trip, which is out in the backcountry. And we kind of, so the class, and so one thing to preface is we have 2 class guides attached to every class. And these are graduates that have successfully completed the program and then have chosen to come back and serve in a leadership capacity. And so we give them annual training and all this stuff. And then they come back to the ranch and embed with the classes for these 41 days to help guide them along. So the class and the class guides, they come up with that plan. They plan it all out together, the routes, and, get all the loads planned out, the pack strings, all that stuff, all the preparation. We give them the framework and the tools, and then they do everything. And we keep it pretty open as far as where the guys can go. And, the beautiful thing about Montana is, we have some of the most beautiful backcountry in the world, and just great access to public lands and stuff like that. So as far as that's concerned, the sky's the limit as far as where they want to do their pack trip. We take into consideration weather and things like that. One thing to, with Montana, we do have wildfires and stuff like that. So depending on how the winter was will depend on how the summer goes for that. And so we take all, risk assessment and all the things in consideration, and the classes plan that trip themselves, every aspect of it. And then we execute the pack trip. And so, when I came through the program in 2018, we we would pack all of our food, and we had these big Yeti soft panniers with ice and meat and all the stuff, and we set up the camp kitchen and everything, and now we have our own freeze dry program. So not only are we serving the best food that you can pretty much consume on the ranch, we're also freeze drying that, and these guys take that with them out in the backcountry, which is great for just keeping the continuity of the program and the nutrition in place. And then also, I mean, if you've ever packed before, I mean, that's saving a considerable amount of weight, on these meals and stuff. So it makes it pretty nice in that aspect too. And then, I would say on average, I would say the total miles of the pack trip varies, but it's going to be probably 110 to 140 miles, depending on terrain and stuff that comes up, and with that, it's like, hey, these are wild animals. We got humans, wild animals, raw environmental challenges, wild, predators, out the backcountry, and different things to consider. So, things come up, and we just kind of, have our systems and checks in place, and just adjust and get it executed. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing when you take guys that 30 days prior would never have thought about doing anything like this in their life. And then you think about the fact too, I mean, when you get out in the backcountry and you see some of these trails and these peaks and switchbacks, and I mean, some of them, we're going on some of the same trails that Lewis and Clark went on, or some of these great pioneers throughout our history. And that is just such a special thing, reconnecting with that pioneer spirit that is latent and, and dormant in most of us in Western society that just don't, our life isn't geared towards that now. And so most people, I mean, a small percentage of humans get to experience this, and so it's really a special thing.
In the Living with Inner Elegance initiative, the thing that I discover with people the most is that they've lost touch with the mind, the body, and the spirit. And you've just described an amazing process of bringing those three things together in this experience. Jane, do you find that with people? There is this sort of bringing together of elements that have got scattered somehow with modern life.
Oh, yeah. I think the ridiculous amount of information that comes into to us, whether we seek it out or not, is incredibly disorienting. And I think we think that our thinking brains, like the more we know, the safer we'll feel with all the information. But actually, that's not true. We don't feel safer. We feel scattered, and we feel powerless in a lot of ways. So I think the idea of taking away cell phones, you're giving me an idea, Jason. I think we're going to do this. You're surrendering your cell phone when you show up on the farm. But I think also the idea of getting back to something. Like we talk about how horses have really only been non-essential for the last 125 years or so, and or less. And you would have seen horses, you would have depended on them for your life or your transportation, as you were saying. So what we say to people is you're actually remembering something that's in your DNA, not too far back, and the loss of it hasn't really made us better as a species. I think we've taken this fragmentation to a degree where it's really detrimental and makes us more passive and angrier.
Yeah, sure.
Not right, not integrated human beings who actually put our feet on the earth and connect to the ground through these horses who are very grounded. and very real. They trust their senses to tell them what reality is and isn't. Whereas we're kind of spinning around up in the top of us that isn't really helping us, I don't think. So I think what you're doing with taking folks out to where that's it, and slowing down and like going by the rhythm of nature is incredibly helpful to people. And we do some of that. We don't go away on a trip like that, but we do that as best we can on our place that's a dedicated space for these people to work. And they have to make peace with the frazzledness.
Yeah. Jason, could you speak a little bit about the challenges around meeting ourselves? I mean, I always feel that the hardest thing in life is dealing with yourself. I mean, we are complicated, aren't we? We've got egos, we've got the saboteur voice, we've got all sorts of things going on that we show up with. But to actually peel it back and see ourselves and have some compassion for that, I think is one of our biggest challenges. And I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit about your experience of what that felt like, and did you feel some cynicism and some resistance in the beginning, or were you able to step into that pretty quickly? Because I find with myself that I sort of think, oh boy, I don't want to know how I feel about that right now. You know.
Yeah. So, I'll first say, I mean, before I came to the program, I tell people this all the time. I mean, I was so, I kind of thinking back, I think I was more of like a caveman, as far as the inner world. I had no dialogue. I was pretty surface level guy. Like I didn't have any inner dialogue with myself. I didn't know how to deconstruct myself, or I didn't think about gratitude or love or, uh, all these things. I thought on a very linear standpoint, just inputs and outputs. And for me, I mean, I pretty much during the program in 2018 when I went through, yeah, I initially fought it very hard. And that was, because of that, I had several challenges, with my horse. And, at the time my horse and he's an amazing horse, Hambone. He's 12 now, I think, or 13. And he was 4 back then. And, but anyways, yeah, I just fought it so hard, and I was so ego driven and, to the point where, but I also had just this overwhelming sense of fear that I couldn't, at that time, I didn't have, people were telling me stuff and all, I just didn't have an ability I didn't know what to do with that. Like I'd never experienced that level of fear, and just not being in control of something and all these things. I felt like I need to control this animal. But it was really the lack of control I had in my own inner world that was coming out, and the animal was just mirroring that. I mean, and so one of my breakthrough moments was, I mean, for instance, I was so terrified, I couldn't even get the horse into a lope, in the round pen. And then he would kind of start, but then I was so just squirrely and chaotic. I mean, it looked like a monkey trying to ride a football or something, and and he kind of slam into the round pen, and then I'd get scared and all this stuff, and so I didn't even know what else to do, and I just stopped in the middle of the arena or the round pen, and I was so angry and just all these things, all these emotions all at once, and I just sat there on my horse and just sobbed. That was like, I was like, that's the only thing I can do is just sob and cry. And so I did, and after that though, something clicked inside of me, and I was able to let go of a lot of that fear. And then that was kind of the catalyst for me to move into my growth and change. And ultimately I just became at peace with whatever was going to happen. And I finally determined that, okay, this animal might do this or that. I need to focus on what am I doing and how am I feeling on the inside. And then, I mean, in theory, with the proper riding position and things like that, I mean, aside from a horse flipping over on top of you, you should be able to navigate whatever comes down the pipe. And so that just really got me to focus on what's going on inside of Jason instead of what's going on outside, and once I started looking inward, I noticed that the outside world was changing around me, and that's where the little breadcrumbs for change were sprinkled about, in my journey. So.
Well, that's a beautiful story that you shared. And I think today we are encouraged all the time to find the answers to all of our problems in the external world.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think what you're talking about is kind of surrendering to whatever it is that's going on inside. And we do try to find answers outside with more information and more insight. But I think facing ourselves and that's how I got into this, was facing real fear, that I was masking with everything I could put in front of it. It's exactly what happened to me. And the moment I surrendered, the horse relaxed and off we went. And I think every person, every vet who comes through our program meets that moment at some point, which I would suspect happens there with more than just you, Jason, but something happens that you need to give over to the situation and to the horse, but it's not like on purpose. It's not like, oh, gee, I'm going to go to the center and sob. You don't say
Yeah,
that.
right. You really don't want to do
You
that.
don't
Yeah.
want to do
Yeah.
that. And I think that was to me the most real situation. That movie, The Mustang?
Yes.
That was such a Hollywood kind of movie. But the moment he gave up trying to bribe the horse with carrots and yell at him, and he finally gave up and sat in the center of the round pen, and the horse came right over. And it's like, gives me goosebumps to think about how much richer we are when we get to know our insides and surrender to fear and to these other things. Just tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the really brilliant thing about horses, is that they really only allow us to speak the truth. If they're going to show up for us and be great partners, we have to be, integrous and congruent, don't we?
Yeah, I don't think they know how to be. With us, we must feel like zombies on top of them, with this like rigid, contracted, like a vice. And they're like, I don't even know what you want, And then all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay, there you are.
Finally.
Yeah.
So, Jason, I had
Yeah.
an extraordinary experience which sort of worked in some ways the other way around. I was running away from myself in a very busy manner. And one of my ways was to ride and gallop about on an ex-racehorse, which I did one day, up in the hills around here with no cell phone, no nothing, completely alone as, as ever. And I was galloping up this path, and my poor horse, we suddenly came upon woodchuck holes in the ground, and I tried to move him over. They were woodchuck holes that hadn't been there the last time I was there, and he just tripped and sort of went sort of scuffed his nose and went down and catapulted me in the air. And as I was flying through the air, I had this voice say to me, "You are stopped in your tracks." And the extraordinary thing happened with me, because then I had hurt my back pretty badly. And so then ended up having to lie down a great deal and contemplate my fate. And that really allowed me to check in with what I was fearful about, what I was running away from, what I was trying to cover up. And so for me, horses were incredibly helpful yet again in my life, but in a sort of, slightly different manner, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
I
great
think,
story. And I mean,
yeah, this idea of sort of I think it's that idea about, facing your fear, because, if you don't, you come to the realization that you're going to fail again and again.
Right. Like the universe hits you with a 2x4. If you don't get it,
Yeah.
I'm sure that the universe or God or whatever throws you some breadcrumbs to go, hey, look over here. But if you don't do it, it ups the ante on us, all of us. And I think that's
Yeah.
the truth of it. And what a relief. What a
Yeah.
relief to
Yeah.
be
What a
given the
relief.
gift of
That
congruence and
surrender.
honesty and
Yeah.
humility.
So, Jason, in the Heroes and Horses program, what would be the best case scenario for somebody when they graduate from the program? How they are when they've gone through this amazing process?
yeah, so that's a great question. And, first off, in life, or especially in these like systems and agencies and organizations that, veterans are attached to in whatever way, whether it be the VA or different organizations, I think that, you could see that they all have their metrics to determine the veterans' success. Well, they're doing this and they were unemployed and they have a job now and whatever. And, so we'll give them a whatever on the rating scale and this and that. But what we do at Heroes and Horses is we give the guys the tools and the framework to then create their own metrics of success. And I think that's something that's very important, and getting away from, you know, uh, people kind of telling you how to think and how to feel and what you should be doing in life. These are all things that are intuitive to us and that are encoded in our DNA. And, the warrior's journey and this kind of hero's path. I mean, all these things are a conclusion of each individual's own soul, and so I think it's important to to say that, that it's important for each man to determine their own metrics of success. And so with that, I mean, I could share a bunch of stories. I mean, we have guys that come to our program in different states. I mean, of being, I mean, and in many cases, a lot of the veterans that come to us are on a myriad of medications that were prescribed from the VA to help them feel normal. And best case scenario is, we've had graduates that we had one guy that was on that had a suicide attempt before the program. And then and then was also on 13 different medications prescribed by the VA, psychotropics, sleeping meds, mood stabilizers, all this stuff to help him feel normal. Mm. And by the end of his journey at Heroes and Horses, he wasn't on any medication. And this was a man that, his whole life was kind of grenaded before he came to us. He wanted to end his life. He was going through a divorce. He had a pretty much toxic relationship with most people around him. There was a lot of people that just didn't want to be around him. And, he was kind of just like a really big, angry dude. And post program, he's doing amazing. He's repaired his relationships in his life. Has a beautiful relationship with his children. Professionally, he's doing amazing. He now loves himself and has found purpose and also acceptance and things that he cannot change. And he's thriving in life with zero medications to help him on his journey. He is his own doctor. He is his own pharmacy, and that is the best case scenario that we see time and time again for a lot of these guys that come through. And not only are these guys just going home and as a changed person, but they're also going back to their houses, incorporating their families and their communities, and these effects are rippling out to the rest of the world. A perfect example of that would be a guy who came through our program a few years ago, who was a commander in the Australian Special Forces, and he came through, and the program dramatically impacted his life in an extremely positive way. And so he partnered with us, and we now have Heroes and Horses Australia for the Australian service member. And matter of fact, they're in their third week of their first class right now. And they have a 7,000 acre ranch in Canberra, out in I guess they call it the Snowy Mountains. And the amazing thing with that I think is very hopeful is, so the Australian VA has signed on to fully fund them, at least the first few years. And, as far as I know, this is the first time. And I mean, I'd gladly prove it wrong, but I've been researching it. I haven't found it yet. But this is the first time in the history of VAs where they've signed on to fully fund a long-term holistic approach to PTSD, for a program like what we do. And so, that's very promising. And so the hopes are that, over time, that their VA can maybe talk to our VA and maybe get a good conversation about change going on,
Well, I
for the
think
American
this idea
veterans.
of the ripple effect is very, very powerful. And I believe that Heroes and Horses also has a program for the families of the veterans too. Is that right?
That's correct. So we have a youth program. We did our pilot last year, and it was a huge success. And so with that, we've partnered with Project Russo, which helps kids that come from war-torn countries that have, in some cases, been trafficked or forced into child soldiering. So we made a partnership with them to help those youth out. And then additionally, this year we're broadening that. So we're going to have slots available for those youth, as well as slots available for the sons of the graduates who have come through our program. And then on top of that, we have the spouse program, which is 6 weeks virtual with Mackenzie Fink, our co-founder and wellness director, Micah's wife. And then for the gals that finish that virtual program, they can then apply to come for the week-long on-site spouse program. And so what we're trying to do is, close that family circle and bring Healing 360 to the whole family, because, I'm sure you ladies know this, but, when a guy, joins up in the military and does his service, he's oftentimes not the only one affected. It's those around him, the loved ones and the family unit, the friends and stuff like that. And so just like with healing of the individual, it's a 360 approach, body, mind, and spirit. It's a 360 approach to the family unit as well. And so that's something we aim to affect and close that circle.
Well, I can't wait for the British program.
Let's do it.
I think there's got to be some connections that could be made in there.
Absolutely.
So, Jane, can you speak a little bit to the bringing in of spouses of the people in your program?
Yeah, if only there were enough days in the year and hours in the day to reach everybody. I think you're absolutely right that the ripple effect is that these folks come home from dangerous situations and just being away and facing things, and then they don't talk, they don't communicate. And then the spouse is found keeping the home fires burning for sure, managing the family, and is not included in this mix at all, and then feels alienated. I think the divorce rate is probably pretty high, and the last thing any mammal needs is to be isolated. So when a person separates himself from a veteran, separates himself from his family, he's lost another form of a unit that should be functioning when he gets home. So I think we've started to do that too, inviting the spouses. And I think that the the work that happens at our place between them, watching each other with the horses and participating together, is amazing. The doors it opens to authentic communication, observation, communication, and it's turned out to be super successful, that supports this ripple effect. We haven't done one with the kids because we didn't want that to be like we don't want to be just a kids program, but I think that would be the next step, would be to have the parents and the kids doing it together. We just need more space, more time, and it's just an obvious thing to not just let the veteran carry the responsibility of rebuilding the authentic, healthy relationships. It's all of us. And we think that's the way it will work, is to bring everybody in and have them renegotiate the space between them and among them. So
So, Jason, we could talk to you all day, but I'm sure you're a very busy man. Is there anything else that you would like to share about heroes and horses before we wrap up?
Um, yeah, there's so much to share. Where do I even start? No, I just want to say, that this is this is a very beautiful thing what we have here, and my good dear friend and CEO Micah Fink. I mean, yeah, it's just so beautiful when you think of the journey, and for me being a small part of that. But he took what from his own life and his own experiences, his own pain and struggles, and has, with the help of a lot of amazing people over the years, turned it into just an amazing, beautiful organization that is is here for the American veteran. And I just want to say to the American veteran that we see you, we hear you, and we love you, and we are here for you. And this organization, is indelible in that journey, that we will always operate to crush the new statistics that came out with the Operation Deep Dive study by the American Warrior Partnership in collaboration with the University of the Duke University. The new studies show 44 veterans per day are committing suicide, and that's not even that number is not even accurate, because there's certain parameters that go into what constitutes a veteran suicide. I'm not going to get into that, but and so every day, us here at the ranch, we pour our heart and our soul into this mission and this organization to serve the American veteran, and to change those statistics. And yeah, I mean, we couldn't do what we do without our amazing donors and sponsors and our volunteer force. And then, we're a very small team here at the ranch. I think we got like 8 employees, and just some of the most amazing humble, dynamic individuals that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And there's a lot of great things ahead for Heroes and Horses and our trajectory and where we're going. And, we have a lot of great projects going on right now that'll be going on through the summer to enhance our infrastructure and improve our ability to serve the veterans in the capacity that we do. And ultimately, this organization, it's not going to be owned by any one person. It's going to be left to the American veteran. And the way we're setting this up is this organization and this ranch and these facilities will be here for the American veteran long after myself or anybody else is here. And so just want to say thank you for having me on and giving me a platform to spread the message. And to all you veterans out there, we love you and we honor your service and look forward to meeting you all when you walk through these gates.
So, Jason, how do people know more about Heroes and Horses, and how would they apply for the program?
So to know more about the organization, you can go to www.heroesandhorses.org, and that's heroes with the ES. And from there, for anybody that wants to apply, you just click the drop-down box, hit apply, and then it'll take you to that page. And then anybody that wants to either give or sign up as a volunteer, we have those portals on there as well as links to a lot of great content that we have on YouTube and stuff like that. So yeah, just go to heroesandhorses.org. If anybody ever needs to get in contact with myself or anybody else in the organization, our contact information is on there, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Well, I would like to thank you so much for sharing not only Heroes and Horses, but a part of your own journey, which I really appreciate. I feel as if I would like to replicate these programs that we've been showcasing here just globally. We would have a way more peaceful world, I think, if we could tap into, these aspects of ourselves. So I am deeply grateful to you for being with us and for being just so open about the challenges and the victories and the ups and the downs. So thank you so much. And Jane, I wonder if you could let people know how to contact the Equus Effect here in Connecticut.
Sure. Well, I feel the same way as Jason, that we are definitely, as much as we can, and to be here for the American veteran and to support the challenge of transitioning from military to civilian life. You can call it PTSD or you can call it whatever, but that transition is huge and it's a big challenge and it's got a lot of parts to it. So if folks who live around here or in New York State or city or anywhere where you can get to us, we're the equuseffect.org, and you can apply or contact us. And if you'd love to donate, we're happy to have that, because I didn't realize the suicide rate had doubled.
Yeah.
Wow, got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, really.
Happy to be doing it though, right?
Yeah. Hey, I do want to say shout out to my buddy John Turner.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love John. He
He's
camps. He does.
he's
Really? He does fieldcraft on our property, which is how I met you, Jason, because they go up in the woods on our property. Yeah.
He's
So
just the
that's
most
great.
amazing, special human, and I love that guy. So love you, John, if you're going to watch this.
So we have some amazing webs of connection, don't we?
We do.
I'm so grateful to have had Jason Laramore from Heroes and Horses and Jane Strong from the Equus Effect. If you would like to know more about the Living with Inner Elegance initiative, visit my website, carolinphipps.com. You'll find podcasts and radio shows and articles and information about upcoming workshops. And we are in the business of creating space for people to come together to put mind, body, and spirit aligned so that we can work together to create a more peaceful and connected world. So thank you so much for watching.